Welcome, everyone, to the journey. I am Reverend Bobby, and today on the journey, I have with me Jaretha Lawson. How are you doing today, Jaretha?
Reverend Bobby, I am doing excellently today. Praise the Lord for that.
Well, that is a wonderful way to be. And people, while you journey, don't forget, subscribe. Gospel of Robert, so you get the little ding and you don't miss anything. Gospel of Robert. So, Jaretha, since you're here on the journey with me today and the people,
Yes.
tell us a little bit about yourself and the journey you've been
Oh,
on.
okay. Well, the journey is my original name is Jaretha Boyd. I attended Calumet High School. I'm going to start there. And later married one time, and I had a son, Brandon Cheatham. And after that, divorce. I later, in 5 years, met my second permanent husband, Benjamin Lawson, who I am still with to this day. And we've been married over 35 years. And my son, Brandon, is now 43 years old. So through that journey, there's a lot of things that's been happening. I got lots of stories. So you just going to have to guide me where you need me to go because I can go all over the place.
Where I need you to go. No, no, no. Listen. The thing is, in what you got for us, because the people, they have a journey, and they may
Okay.
not have the tit for tat, step by step stuff, but we all on a journey, and see, we get some from everybody. So you hit out on the journey, some ups and downs, rounds and rounds,
Okay.
and we've all
Okay.
tasted. And
Okay.
you know,
Okay. Well, I can say this. I met Ben in 1989. We got married in 1990. In 1991, we decided to move to Miami, Florida from Chicago, Illinois.
mhm.
And so we gathered up the kids and we got our little Beverly Hillbillies truck and we moved on up the road to Miami, Florida. The
Now, was it
reason
some motivation behind this move, or
that's what I wanted to
was the
tell you.
dartboard out one day and let's hit it?
Total motivation. The reason we moved to Miami, Florida was we were both in the entertainment industry as it relates to modeling and acting, doing commercials and that kind of thing, and TV. I had just done a nice role in the movie Heaven is a Playground, which was supposed to star Michael Jordan, and
Mhm.
I was going to be his very young mother. And I was
Very
starring with
young.
very young mother, yes, because Michael and I are very close in age. Yeah.
Mhm.
But anyway, Mike Warren from Hill Street Blues was my husband in that film. So during that time, simultaneously, Ben and I are auditioning for different modeling jobs. And there was a big cruise line job coming up in Miami, Florida, which we both flew down to Miami and we auditioned for the job. And we got such great reviews with that job. Many of the agents there were suggesting that we move there because they didn't have a couple like us.
Mhm.
And that's what we did. So we left Chicago and we followed our dreams for modeling and acting. And we did get to do more roles, being work with Fred Williamson when we moved to Miami. We lived there 11 years, took our son, and we had our ups and downs because in the modeling industry, it's feast or famine. And I had given up my teaching role because I was given this modeling and acting 100%. That was
Mhm.
the plan.
Right.
So in that time, Ben and I bought a house and you got to pay that mortgage.
Every
And
month.
so we had some very, very challenging times
Now,
because it
how
was
did you get through these challenging times? What did you have to pull on and use intrinsically, probably, to get through these times?
well, lots of prayer. So every day, Ben, Brandon, and I would get together and we get on our knees or we be in bed and we start reading that Bible. But I got to share this one time when I had finally just said, God, if it is your will that Brandon, Ben, and I walk around Miami with a shopping cart and we're homeless, then I'm just going to surrender all to you. Because at that point, we had been working, we had jobs up, but the agencies didn't pay you for 90 days.
Right.
So you didn't know when you were going to get your money. We didn't have a sponsor.
Right.
So we had to make it through those 90 days until we got that big check that we were waiting on, that public aid check. That's what it was like. So during that time, one night I was awakened. Ben was still asleep. We were in bed. And there was just this globe, an illuminant light at Ben's feet, at the foot of the bed. And I thought to myself, oh, Lord, I'm dying because that's God. That illuminant light is God.
Right,
I must be dying. So I was frightened. So I go back to sleep and I happen to wake up because I'm still here. And I
Praise
told
the Lord.
I know, right? So I called Ben and I say, baby, look, this is what happened last night while you were asleep. Told him about the illuminant light. And I said, let's get that Bible out. Let's pray. I don't know what's going on. So I called our son, Brandon, into the room. I said, okay, Brandon, here's the Bible. Let's open it. And what we did at that time, we would just flip the book open and whatever page it would go to, that's where we would read. So this particular special morning, we opened the Bible and Reverend, it opened to the story of Job. And I said, oh my God.
Interesting.
Yeah. I said, oh my God, Job. I said, okay, you guys, let's read about Job. Well, Brandon, he was no more than 8 or 9 years old. He says to me, Ma, I know the story of Job. I was like, what you mean you know the story of Job, boy? All right, if you know the story of Job, you tell us the story of Job. Well, this kid started to tell us the story of Job and how Job was just so loyal to the Lord. And then all these bad things started happening to Job and everybody, all his friends and people that he listened to were telling him, cuss the Lord. You know, he ain't doing nothing for you. Look at you. You suffering. And Job wouldn't. It got so bad that his wife even told him, Job, look at you. You know, I mean, Job was a rich man. And now he was just losing everything. So his wife, you know, when that money gets funny, they get funny too, I guess. So,
oh my goodness, that's a whole nother show.
That's a whole nother show. Okay, so anyway, at the end of the story of Job, everything was replenished. He never lost his faith and his belief in God, and so God just gave him everything back tenfold. I said, okay, all right. Well, that story in our lives, there were some parallels going on.
Tell me more.
So you see, what was happening was my sister and my mom had loaned Ben and I their credit cards to make it through that hard time, you know. Well, they decided to take the cards back from us. And at the same time, they were saying things like, you know what? Maybe you need to check how you're living. You know, these things are happening to you. Maybe you're not living right. Same thing these people said to Job. Well, you know, I was told.
Aretha, my goodness.
I know.
Things never change. Nothing new under the sun, like in Ecclesiastes, huh?
Yes. Well, I was crushed. But to make a long story short, we managed through that time with the grace of God, because remember, I had surrendered all. I said, Lord, if it's your will, then you just have your way, because I'm just not going to worry about this. My hands are tied. There's nothing else I can do but just surrender all. And that's what I did. And I got to tell you, we have never looked back. We have never looked back one day. Things just got better and better and better and better. And I can only say there was that parallel with Job. It was the same thing that happened. Never had to borrow money from anybody except the mortgage company. Other than that, we've been good.
Yeah, and I tell my people, especially when they're going through that period right there, that dark night of the soul stuff. Because if you don't know where you are,
Mm,
you get confused.
mm-hmm.
Because the clearing and the moving out of your way looks the same as the devastation
Come
and the
on.
loss and the stuff falling down and breaking
Mm.
up. How were you able to tell the difference? Because it looked like you knew what was ahead for you.
You know what, Rev? I just always kept the faith and I just always had that joy. And I just always had that belief that there was a higher power. And at the same time, I was reading a lot of self help
Uh-huh.
along with the Bible, positive thinking books. Because before we journeyed, I'm going to go back a little bit to
You go back
Chicago.
a little bit.
I'm
Okay.
going to go back a little bit.
This is like
Uh,
Pulp Fiction. We could jump around.
I had decided to model at a time. I was a teacher and a young teacher at that. And the teachers in Chicago had gone on strike for the first time. You hear me?
I
And
remember.
I was like, what am I going to do? The teachers are on strike. Oh, and what was also important during that time was I had just divorced Brandon's father.
Mhm.
So here comes a whammy. The divorce, I'm living by myself, raising my son. Teachers go on strike. That was the first time I had really hit a low point in my struggle, in my challenge, in my journey.
It was a
So,
definite wall, wasn't it?
pardon?
It was a definite wall, was
Oh,
it not?
totally. Totally. So, that creativity begins to kick in and that survival mode kicks in. And I said, well, what can I do until the teachers go back to work?
Mhm.
And I said, well, my goodness, people have been telling me I look like a model. I said, you know what? I'm going to dress my kid up and we're going down to this modeling agency. Maybe we can get some work for Brandon too. He was only 2 years old.
Yeah.
And so I dressed him up. We went down to Shirley Hamilton Modeling Agency on North Michigan Avenue. Boldly went in there and I did my little model strut that I had seen on TV. And I struck a pose. And the people at the front desk kind of looked at me and laughed, like, who is this ghetto chick here? Right. And so they said to me, can we help you? And I'm looking at them like, honey, can't you see? I said, I want to be a model. And they laughed. But see, God was with me even then.
Right.
In the back of the room, a deep voice comes up and she introduces herself. She says, hi, I'm Shirley Hamilton. And yes, I think you can model. Follow me. She laid out that red carpet and walked me back to her office. And my career took off right then and there. I did a commercial for Fashion Fair, cosmetics. I was in the newspaper in Chicago for Montgomery Ward. And I tell you, God works in mysterious ways. And during that time, I also asked her if my son could work because I was going to put him to work too. But Rev, she didn't handle kids. So that part didn't fly. But later on in Miami, he did work. He did some film work. He did some modeling and everything. So those were two milestones. Those are two detrimental curves in my journey, but they worked out in my favor. I got plenty more. But anyway.
Well, it's about follow the yellow brick road, and sometimes we have to have, like you said, the faith to follow that yellow brick road that we don't even know that's there.
Yes.
But as we follow and as we go along, things start to open up for us. My eldest, when they saw her in LA one time, they wanted to know if she wanted to work. She was like, nah. But then she had her baby working before she was 6 months old for a minute.
See,
I said, you're a bum. And she goes
see,
like, Daddy. But when these opportunities and stuff come up, it's amazing because somehow, some way, we're up for the call. How did you feel about that when here you are? I wanted to be a model, and they laughing, and Shirley come out and say, "Come here, girl," and then all of a sudden there it is. How did that make you feel? Just
Well,
Aretha, Rita.
you know what? It was awesome at first. And I was so thrilled and excited. But once I left that office, I was like, oh my God, I don't know these people. I don't know this world. I'm just a little girl from the hood. I don't, how am I going to cope? How am I going to be successful uh, being on Michigan Avenue? That was intimidating by itself.
Mm-hmm.
So Shirley Hamilton's office was on North Michigan Avenue, like 450 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Underneath her office was a bookstore. So I said, come on, Bran, we're going in this bookstore. I go into the bookstore and I read the aisles. They had labels. There was one aisle that stuck out in my mind, and it was called self-help. I said, that's what I need. I need some self-help. So I went down that aisle. I started reading those books. I chose the one that struck me the most, that kind of resonated with me. And I bought it and I began to read one book after the other. The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. The Key to Yourself. Just all these different books and titles, one after the other, one after the other. And I got to tell you, you're talking about that yellow brick road. The yellow brick road, after reading and believing and taking all this stuff in, it's just like everything was just laid out. There was already a path. Like they say, he knows before you even know. His plan for you has already been made. It's a done deal already. We're just going through the motions. So on this yellow brick road, I decide to start writing a program for kids,
Mm-hmm.
for teenagers, because I was just so grateful for everything I was learning. And I said to myself, gosh, if kids in high school had this, because I thought, man, if I'd had this in high school, I would have been so much further along mentally, spiritually. My whole journey, just I think, would have been much different, much better. So I developed a program for teenagers. After I met my next husband, Ben, which happened to be my main man for life, together he had some parallels in his life that resonated in my life. We had so many things in common, that we were able to take this program on the road, made that journey to Miami-Dade County Public Schools, and we started to conduct self-esteem workshops for kids, at-risk kids in the high schools. The administration there received us very well. We were a young Black couple, and we had some success in the industry that we could talk about and share with the kids. So that was kind of a draw for kids, because, the glamour of the
Right.
modeling and the commercials.
Glamorous life.
Yeah, yeah. So we used that to pull them in. And then we began these workshops, and I'm telling you, they were really dynamic, very, very dynamic. We had the Teaching Learning Network that was they followed us around. They were producing the show, and they traded us out, because that's show business, for a kids cooking show.
What were
So
some
we
of the
got canned.
dynamics? What were some of the things included in the program that you presented to uh, the kids that they could like at that age and level grab a hold of and make use of in their life?
Yeah, well, we did 12 episodes, and the one that sticks out with me the most that I thought kids needed was so many when I say that. Compliments was one. And that was about just when you see somebody, look for the good in them. Because I think oftentimes through our environment, through our culture, we think we need to criticize people. We think we need to,
Behavioral conditioning. That's the way it's come. Criticized the one that worked well for people in my life. Snicker, snicker, snicker was cut me down to size. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
yeah, no, no, please do, please do. So that was one, and we had one called attitude, and we talked about where your attitude comes from and how to assess your attitude and do attitude adjustments. And that attitude is actually everything, and that it could make you or it could break you. So we went into different strategies to help deal with that attitude, to help them to determine where they got it from and why they have it and why it's okay to dispose of it.
Yeah.
And we kind of called this program a positive brainwashing.
Yeah.
To just undo all that environmental, cultural stuff that's been plugged into you that holds you back, that holds you down. You got to let it go. And so we kind of worked on that. We worked on setting goals. We worked on how to dress. We worked on, like self-care. We worked on anger. How to deal with anger. Where's that anger coming from? We dealt with excuses and procrastination. So a lot of the strongholds that hold so many of us back, those are the things we worked on. We worked on a lot of that.
It's good. It's good to introduce it to them at a young age. I know friends my age, our age, we talk about the disciplined activities we had, growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Boy Scouts, playing basketball. We played softball for the police department, and they used to carry us around the paddy wagon. So one day they let us out the back of the paddy wagon at McDonald's on 87th up near Stony, and the whole McDonald's went whoop to one side to get away from us so we could order. But we had that instituted to us in our young lives. I had to learn to read. My mommy and daddy were teachers. There was no way I wasn't going to read. And you had said something about reading earlier and how important, because you was going to read the self-help. How important is just basic things like helping them to learn to read. And one of the things I did here, I did school reform here for the first 4 or 8 years. And helping the kids understand it's okay to do good. Forget what your boys be calling you. Do good anyway.
Well, you know what, Reverend Bobby? What we did in our program, we helped them to understand why education was important. Because I think when they understand and it's relatable to their lives, then there goes the motivation. That's what makes them want to learn how to read, want to listen in their geography classes, want to listen in their history classes. They need a reason. I mean, I still substitute teach now, and I had a student ask a teacher, they were working on concave and convex mirrors and things. And she was like, why is this relevant to me? Mm-hmm. You see what I mean? And this is high school. And so as the teacher continued with the lesson, it showed the type of rear view mirror that you look in when you're driving. Okay. See, young lady, you didn't know you're going to need this. In your rear view mirror, it tells you the objects look smaller. Is that concave or is that convex? So these are things they just need to know why it's relatable to them later in life. And then go on.
No, I was going to say, yeah. And that's what we're able to do because we've had some experience with these things and can relate them to life for them so they can be like, okay, well, I'm not just wasting my time. sitting here. And that's very important for their development, isn't it?
It is. It is. I mean, think about it. I don't know if you ever watched the Atlanta Housewives, but I can kind of relate to Portia. I know, big time. Portia, this was years ago when it first came on, and she was talking about the Underground Railroad. And she thought it was actually an underground railroad. So it showed how she didn't pay attention in school. You see, so you use these things, they're going to come up in your later life. And you want to be able to have a conversation with somebody and know what you're talking about and don't show that you really didn't pay attention in school.
And you know, it's school and just life, especially with our story. You know, we know our story. We
Yes.
lived our story. And it's more in life than in school, but it surprises me, especially lately. I've been really surprised at how very unfamiliar so many people are with who and what we are, who and what they are. And it's almost like, and I don't know why I'm going this way because I don't fool around over here, but it's almost like, where have you lived the past 400 years? Don't you know where you're living and stuff like that? But that ain't what we talking about, because we talk about some other stuff. But listen. As we come close to the end of our journey today, and I know you're going to come back and do some more. I already know that. If it was one thing, start giggling, girl. See, if it was one thing, I know you just who you are. I know. That tickles me too. But if it was one thing or something to just get the meat hooks, to give people attention so they could make it through when they hit a wall and go, wow, what would you tell them right here and right now in this very moment, Miss Jaretha?
You know what I would say, Rev?
No.
I would say, I'm going to tell you, keep your head to the sky. Keep your head to the sky. Don't look down. Keep the faith. Know that there is a higher power and he got us. He got you in the palm of your hand. He got your back. He is here with us. Don't give up. Just keep the faith. Keep the faith. And don't be anxious about what may not come to pass. Stay in the moment. Stay in the moment. You're doing all right now, right? We skinning and grinning. We happy. Stay in the moment.
Now, right here, right there, the moment is a very hard place to stay because it's something I share for people to do. And, but that's in the manner that the way I look at it, that's the only place life is.
Yes.
You know, the right here and right now. And the really, really wonderful and beautiful thing is right here and right now, as you and I sit hollering at one another talking. All of eternity exists right now. It can't go nowhere. So everything we can ever need, want, desire is right here for us to self-help ourselves, right?
Yes. That's right.
Into being able to see it, because it's right here in front of our face. Miss Jaretha, I just had such a wonderful time with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Reverend Bobby. Thank you. Means much.
And we will do this again. And as we come to the end of our journey, remember, Gospel of Robert, ROBERT, that's me. Subscribe so you don't miss anything. And from Jaretha and myself, we just wish that you journey well from here. Take care.
Much love.